So essentially today's world, like if you do an analysis on how everything's going today, it is a DIY empowered world that there is no stopping this
Yeah.
this from happening. And why that's so important is because if you aren't doing this in this method, if you aren't putting yourself out there, giving people this knowledge, they're going to be able to get it from anywhere.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jonathan from Autodesk. Welcome to Shop Talk, the podcast series where we talk to makers, inventors, designers, and engineers from shop to shop. Today, we're speaking with Josiah Filice from FDF Race Shop, and I've got Keqing Song with me, our resident car nerd.
Yes. Thanks, Jonathan. This is going to be an exciting conversation. I can't wait. Josiah is a professional race car drift car driver. But he's more than that. He's also quite the businessman, the entrepreneur, and also an engineer. So you've got a combination of just these great disciplines that really make him stand out. So Josiah, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself for those who don't know who you are, who are tuning in?
Yeah, we'll start with a quick synopsis of who I am and what I do. Josiah Filice, and I own FDF Race Shop. I have two other companies, both related to industrial and motorsports as well. And the way that I got started was in 2015. I started FDF Race Shop as a weekend hobbyist job where I just continually wanted to create, design, build, and solve problems.
Yeah.
And I was actually using Inventor, Autodesk Inventor at the time, because I went to school for
Oh,
manufacturing engineering. We primarily used Inventor, and we did all kinds of things. I had my level one millwright. I had a whole bunch of different courses that I was taking, welding, stuff like that. And when I brought it all together, I had a little bit of every skill, and I was able to really start to use that within my passion of also racing. So what happened was I started with building roll cages actually, but then as you're doing roll cages, I wanted to optimize the process. So I really started to get into designing the tubes and the plates that go into the car so that if I
mhm.
ever did that same car again, it would be half the time the second time I did it.
Yeah.
And that was the real starting point of FDF Race Shop. That's exactly what happened in the beginning. And I pride myself in doing the best possible roll cages. So then I started getting rally guys. If you don't know, rally requires the highest level of roll cage construction. You have to pass certain tests. You have to, uh, I mean, they send you different material types. They use four different types. There's Dockle, T45, there's chromoly, and then there's mild steel. You can build a cage out of any one of these materials, but you have to be certified to weld each one of them. So the process of how I got to where I am today, I essentially 11 years now I've been doing it, is there's lots to talk about in between, but that's kind of the starting of how I got into the business side of things.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
how was it for you to get into drifting? Like why drifting and not other kinds of racing in motorsports?
So drifting is relatively new still, and it's a real problem solving type of sport
Mm,
because if you go to race, like a lot of guys race a bone stock BRZ, and then in order to race that same chassis in other series, you don't need to do a whole lot to the car in order to race at a beginner or an advanced level. In drifting, you have to actually reverse engineer and redesign everything in order to make the chassis even possible to do it at all. Even at a grassroots level, they still require an angle kit, which is a
yeah.
complete reinvention of the front suspension system. We have to get the wheels to turn 2 to 3 times more than what they were originally intended to turn. And the thing that happens is the wheel runs into everything. And the steering rack range and the ratio of the knuckle and everything doesn't work with getting that much steering angle. And the intention of the car's design, the original design, was never made to do that.
Yeah.
So being a problem solver, it really allowed me to sink my teeth into things. And there wasn't a whole lot available that I was happy with. And also a money thing, like not having any money when I started doing this was a real big motivator. I have the CAD skills, I have the materials, strength of materials background, and I understand how to operate CNCs, although I didn't have any for the first while. I was using a lot of local companies, but drifting just happened to be really fun to do, gets the adrenaline going, and then you're able to problem solve kind of anything. Like
Mm.
we need to mount a secondary caliper, we got to fit a or a hydro handbrake inside the car. All kinds of things need to be changed, and it's kind of an open book in terms of what you can and can't do. Whereas if you signed up for, I don't know, CASC or NASA or any kind of formulated or sanctioned racing series,
Yeah.
they've got a rule book that was written many, many years ago, and you have to follow these guidelines. Same thing with drag, same thing with really any other type of racing. A dirt track is very, very minimal. You basically can only run one type of control arm, and they've
Mm.
already established everything for the last 50 years. So I guess it was kind of at the time really, really open for interpretation on how you can do things.
So
Yeah.
it's more of the engineering of it was more interesting to you, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, not necessarily it being more fun than regular road racing or drag or whatever, but it's also the barrier to entry is much lower. You can basically have a rear wheel drive manual car and go to the track. You don't need to do anything else. So,
Yeah. When you talk about like the kind of re engineering the entire front suspension to make like the wheels turn 3 to 4 times more, I know that FDF Race Shop, you guys, you've created these like essentially 3D printed templates of or guides of your suspension geometry, your camber. How did you go about, like, what prompted you to design those things and make it available uh to folks that are or want to learn?
yeah, so 4 to 5 years ago, I started making a YouTube series
Yeah.
to help people understand suspension. Now, getting the customer confidence in buying a product requires a lot of work. I would say
Mm,
starting a business, the number one thing is to get to the point where somebody goes to your website, makes a purchase, and they don't need to email you for anything. They don't need to ask any questions. They don't need to wonder if their payment's going to go through. Once you've done that, you've established the first step of being able to sell something successfully. So
yeah.
this was part of the process, getting my customers to have buyer confidence in the products so that when they buy a product and I have Ackerman this and there's caster changes here and the recommended alignment specs are X, Y, and Z, they have an understanding of what all of that means because I made the background videos and
Yeah.
displays to understand it. And really, what happened was I'm such a visual learner. So the issue with me when I was in school is that I would be 100% on anything practical, and then written tests, I would be somewhere in the high 70s, low 80s or
Yeah.
something. But that
Same
was
here.
just because the learning style that I have is if I fully understand something by working with it, I'll never forget it. I'll fully grasp it. And I'd be able to write an entire curriculum on that one thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm reading something and they've tried to trip you up with the words, like they often do in tests, that'll trip me up because they've just worded it in a way where, like the way that I would show my work for math equations, everything is different. And I think today it's really nice because that's actually recognized in schools now. But
Mm, hmm.
even when we were in school, I'm 33, so when we were in school, it wasn't actually like everyone had to do the same thing the same way. And me reading a book, I'll get 10 pages into it and I don't know what's going on. My brain was somewhere else making parts or something while I'm reading
Yeah.
anything. It could be a book with my kids or whatever. But basically, to bring it back, those displays are to help people like me, which, I think most people learn the most when they have it in their hands and they actually see what Roll Center does when you actually manipulate it, because you can explain Roll Center on a whiteboard with converging lines and intersection points, but if nothing moves from where you drew it, you don't get to see how it behaves in all kinds of different scenarios. And I can actually simulate every scenario with this little display. And then I made all the other displays stacked with each other. So you could buy, and people often do, college professors, students,
Hmm.
we're selling these things to everybody, just because of me creating a method of education that works for me
Yeah.
and it happens to work for everybody else.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I feel like it's definitely very needed in today's education. And I feel like I speak for myself. I don't know about you, Jonathan. I feel like we engineers are just very visual learners.
Yeah.
In a practical sense, right? Also, if we can get our hands on something and kind of play with it, then I feel like we learn faster.
Yeah, I mean,
That
it's the stuff. I don't know if you guys had a similar experience when you were kids, but I found math to be just painfully boring until I got to geometry, and then it was like, and then when I got to geometry, all of a sudden this light goes off, and oh, there's a practical application for this stuff. I can actually see how this works now, and
yeah.
then yeah, so it's I agree for sure. If it's not only does it help you get through it and comprehend things, I think it's also super inspiring to be able to, to work with something like that. I had this unrealistic goal years ago of have you ever heard of this book, 507 Mechanical Movements? You
I
guys should
haven't
check it out.
actually.
I'll send you a link. It's from like the 19th century, late 19th century or something. But this guy basically they're almost like patent drawings, but it's a book of every kind of mechanical assembly that existed at the
Okay. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So it's mostly like farm equipment and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
making 3D printed demonstrations of each kind of movement really helped me a lot understand the principles behind this. And like you can feel how it works. Like how does leverage apply to this thing? And um,
Yeah.
but it brings me to another question I had kind of from, just seeing your work is you mentioned that you were specializing in roll cages earlier. How did you shift from doing one-offs to going to these repeatable systems,
Hmm.
which also led to products that you sell, right?
Yeah, it started with the scalability of working for an hour. So working for an hour and then getting paid for the hour is a type of business model that I did not find to be scalable. And I really needed to put in the effort once and then resell it for the next 20 years. That's really what the goal was, or more than that. So my a lot of people in my family are entrepreneurs, and the transition was from being able to invest the time today in order to make money for the rest of time.
Hmm.
And that's just the business model. And the cages were not it. Like you have to put in 40, 50 hours a week. You'll get paid for the one cage and then you got to do it again. You got to do the
Mm-hmm.
exact same thing again, but it's different. It's a different car. Although I was able to mitigate some of that with the base plates and having pre-saved the bends and all these other things, it still wasn't scalable. I'd have to have a shop of 20 people. We'd have to do 50 cages a month. And I just said, this isn't possible. Like, I'm happy to do it as one guy in a small shop. You could make $6,000 a week pretty easily. But as a business model that's scalable and you want to get a racetrack and a building and equipment and you want to have the ability to do anything, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I wonder what came first. Was it your interest in racing? Did that drive you to get into engineering, or was it the other way around?
It's a good question. I was honestly, the real long story was I was actually in going to college for playing basketball. And once I realized I
Oh,
played in the US for a little bit, once I realized I'm 6'5", so I'm not that tall for basketball, but I'm also not short. So,
that's pretty tall.
like a power forward position or something would be a small power forward. Like I would just be either a big point guard, and I never played point guard. So the problem was going from there to then realizing, my entire life I just built things
Hmm.
randomly all the time. I would buy the Lego set and then I would buy the Lego set for the parts that came with it, not to build the set itself. And I
Hmm.
would constantly make new things. I actually almost never built the thing that the box was intended for. I would always pull parts from it and make my own thing. So with
Oh,
that,
nice.
going to school, obviously you can take engineering and then you can play basketball. But I realized, all my focus needs to be put in this one area. So I actually worked as a manufacturing engineer at a company that it's called Medicine on Time. They basically made blister packs, and I fixed their machines and made them work better and stuff like that. But while I was doing that, they had CNC machines there, so I started using those CNC machines just in the off hours and on the weekends. And once I started making parts for my own car, I happened to have a Nissan 240SX, a 92. And I just started making random parts for that. Well, people saw those parts at the racetrack. They were
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
can you make that for me too? I said, I don't see why not. Give me $200. And then I made like wing brackets. Custom wing brackets was one of my first products that actually worked really well, which was you'd go on my website. I paid $8 a month for this website, and they would key in the dimensions of what size the wing bracket wanted to be. And I had three different styles, and they would pick a style and give me the size. And then I would just quickly draw that wing bracket, and then I get a cut by my local water jet company here in
Nice.
town. So they would pay me $350. It would cost, $75 to cut it. I could draw it from my three other designs. I just changed like two dimensions and it would update. I really focused on making parametric models like really buildable, and I always test
Yeah.
them and break them down and see if they can withstand changing and go into the parameters now and stuff. So I got to mess with that stuff really early, so that I do a lot with hood vents right now. That's the one thing that we sell a lot
Mm.
of, where people key in custom dimensions and then it just spits out like a finished hood vent. So that really was the start of it with getting scalable. And once you start realizing that you're solving problems and you're filling in a niche and a need, it just starts to flow, and you just start to think differently. You start to see the world differently. And
Yeah.
every single thing that I look at, I could be in a clothing store with my kids, I could be at a restaurant, and I look at absolutely everything. The handrails, how like what tender job did somebody bid on to do all the handrails for Wendy's or whatever, and like how did they produce this, and what's the mounting flange of the tables, and like I just look at everything totally different.
Yeah.
And in an as an opportunity, like I always look at everything as some kind of an opportunity. And now being in a position with all the machines that we have, it's like there is no ceiling anymore with.
That's the true business owner mindset, man. And this is the thing that we always encourage and harp on is, making your designs parametric and making sure your timeline is clean and, things that are actually built to be reconfigurable, or if you need to make a change later, right? Like, that's the thing. This is like a prime example of why this is important, and you've done it. You've done it from the beginning, and you've like really embodied that methodology. So yeah, dude, kudos. This is
Correction, I would say I haven't done it from the beginning. I would say that I'm an extremely unorganized person that has, through necessity, become organized with the help of software and Fusion and the people around me too. Like there's certain ways that I would do things that, I thought it was a good idea. And honestly, it just isn't. It's like
yeah.
not a good way to organize it. So now when people watch my seminars on how to design things in my workflow, they applaud the organization, which is crazy because that is not how I am.
But that was your learning journey, right? And you like realized that you have to get to a point where you can reuse those components or make sure that parameters update when you're changing values. So I think, yeah, as part of everyone's learning journey, that's the goal that we encourage people to get to. And yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
It all gets back to your original, um, I guess you'd call it a goal. Your original goal, which seemed to be to get away from selling your time, right? I don't want to repeat something and then sell my
Right.
hour that way. I want to create a system where there's something repeatable that I can go back to and like, spend as little time as possible. I mean, that's parametric design in a nutshell, right? Like just avoiding going back and redoing things for whatever the case is. um, I'm curious about your branding because you mentioned people were noticing things, your, parts on your car and so on and asking for them. When did you get into the whole, uh, conspicuous FDF racing brand, which is this bright green and black, and like you've got these beautiful anodized, machined aluminum parts, and then even those, I'm sorry, what did you call those little test pieces?
The educational displays,
Yeah, the
the
educational displays. Those
yeah,
have that same branding, right? It's yellow, green, and black.
yeah,
When did that come in?
yeah. I can easily talk about that because it's kind of a random thing that just became a household name, at least in drifting. FDF Race Shop stands for Fillets Design and Fabrication. So that's what FDF stands for. And that was essentially my starting point of people would come in and I would build them anything. I built some of the first jobs I did were like some light posts for some electrical company. And then I was doing random jobs for farm equipment, just welding things here and there. But when I started making control arms, the first set of control arms that I ever made were for an S chassis, a 240 Nissan, and they looked like a praying mantis's control or arm. So I
Mm,
called it a Mantis kit. And at the time, like it was, I just thought I'd make angle kits for an S chassis, and that would be pretty much it. And I through social media, like the power of social media is absolutely insane. Like it before social media, you had to be Hollywood essentially in order to be in the entertainment industry. And you had to somehow have a path to that direction on how to be in that world. You had to do Broadway, you had to do all these things. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm assuming you just had to go through the paces, and you could either be an entertainer or you couldn't be. Well, today
yeah.
you can be an entertainer within any niche that you have, and it's actually quite sought after and desired. People prefer it, if anything. There's YouTubers that made their entire life upon posting on social media. That's all they did, and that's how they became successful. So I started very early. I know it's more than 11 years ago because it was before my daughter was born. She's 11. So let's just say 12 years ago, I started an Instagram page called FDF Fab, and it's the same page that my business is. It's over 100,000 followers now. And if you go back far enough, you'll see how everything originated. All the posts are still there. But starting it, I thought I would just make an S chassis kit and that would be it, with a couple of the wing bracket products like I talked about. But it turned out that people really were after just the fact that I was posting about what I was doing. I was talking about it and I was calling it something unique, and I wasn't following the status quo. I was just solving problems and kind of discussing it publicly, and people really started to latch onto that. And I won't say it was easy. The first 3 to 4 years, you really had to put yourself out there. You had to DM people
Yeah.
that had a decent following, and then get them to run your products, and then get them to review, and so that you can make changes and whatever. And I had to do that for many, many years, making absolutely no money at all. Um, and people don't see that side of it. They don't see you until you've made it. And I don't even consider it that I've made it yet, but they don't see it until it's well known by everyone, but they miss the whole start. So it's a good thing you're asking. The Mantis angle kit came from the fact that it looked like a praying mantis. Otherwise, I have no affiliation with the bug. It's just is what it looked like, and they don't really look like it anymore. But the name really stuck.
Okay.
Um, so that's just people put it on all their fenders, all their
Yeah.
arches, wheel arches. Mantis angle is what a lot of people have on the car. Thousands of people. There's so many random things now where we're seeing our logos and branding just everywhere.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. You kind of touched on this just now, but like what would be one thing that you've learned while you were, going through this journey, this entrepreneurship journey that really surprised you, that you didn't think about early on, but really surprised you?
Um, I'd say one of the most important things learning was you need to put yourself in a position where you have to learn by necessity, in the sense
Mm,
that if you think that you might need a piece of equipment, and you're currently using that piece of equipment outsourced, like I'm getting parts water jet cut all the time. Buy the water jet machine. I mean, that's a bit extreme, but I was ready at the time. Buy the machine,
yeah.
starting small, and then you'll find reasons to use it. And you have to prove yourself before you do this. But essentially, I was able to learn by necessity by uh, putting myself in positions where I needed to make it happen. I had no other out other than through. And that's kind of how I describe basically everything that I've
Mm,
done, is learning by necessity and making it happen. And if you don't put yourself in that position, a lot of people won't have the motivation, desire, or whatever discipline to actually go through with anything. And then people kind of get stuck in that rut. And I'm
yeah.
like, don't buy $100,000 machine. And if you haven't done anything prior, start small. Small for me would have been like I bought a plasma cutter and a manual mill off of Marketplace, and I
Yeah.
started using those pieces of equipment, and I had to make my money back. So that's how I started. But it scales, right? Everything in life is scalable. So if you're able to turn 100% profit 10 years ago and you're now doing, 10x what you were, you can turn another 100% profit, but the numbers are a lot bigger.
Josiah, you touched on this also just a little bit. You mentioned seminars. Talk a bit about your seminars. What are they? What do you do in them? Like who can join them? Yeah.
Yeah, this was really uh like the entrepreneur mindset of constantly testing the waters, kind of like a toddler, just kind of testing the boundaries all the time, just constantly seeing what you can get away with.
Oh, I get
And
that. I get that every
yeah,
day.
so I use social media, and there's all these accounts, and I don't really listen to much of them, but they're all like, I made $1 million on Instagram doing this, and you go to click on it, and all they do is tell you how they made $1 million. That's the last 30 posts that they made. So they actually, their hook is that they're telling you that they did it, but then they just keep saying the same thing every time. So like, but to an extent, there's a little bit of truth, but you have to have so many things in the back end that they don't mention.
Mm,
And because I have the following, I built a community. I have 10 years plus of design and engineering practical experience. And I've made a lot of things. I've made like 10,000 plus parts, all designed. They're all in Fusion. And essentially, there isn't really a problem that I can't look at that I couldn't solve within a couple of minutes. And I might have to do a little bit of research on the back end and then go back to it in Fusion. But essentially, I started helping some people randomly with things in Fusion, and what was really easy to me changed their whole design process internally with whatever their business was. And I can probably use this one example. There's a guy in Spain. He's making bumpers for Jeeps, and it's a really hot commodity there because they buy the Jeeps and they pay a lot of money for them, but they can't
mm,
import the bumpers. So they're designing them, and I just spent a little bit of time on a Zoom call with them, and he sent me the mesh file of the Jeep, and he's like, "How would you make the bumper for this?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I'm openly just thinking of my workflow, just like, oh, I'm going to origin it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to place this piece here, I'm going to build off of that, I'm going to do all the sheet metal design stuff. Is you can find YouTube videos on how to do every single command, flanges and cuts and breaks, and you can figure out how to do it all. But to actually build something that you can't look up build a Jeep bumper
yeah, yeah.
using sheet metal in Fusion. You could look up how to make a box, but what if the box needs to go around something? Well, now you're screwed because you missed the avoidance region aspect of reality. Like, how do you design something that's in real life? So that's what I do, as like I'm an expert in that essentially. So he's like, "Oh, but how do you just get around this one aspect or this one piece, this one bracket?" I'm like, "Oh, it's easy. You just go like this." And he was just like mind blown, just like, I can't believe it was that easy. I'm like, it is easy only if you know where to look and where to
Yeah,
click.
yeah.
And how do I know where to look within a couple of seconds? Because I've done it, hundreds of times. So with that, the seminars are just essentially workflow. People are able to register, sign up. It's an hour and a half, but I usually go to 2 hours. It's 25 people max. And you watch me design and solve problems live through the seminar for a solid hour straight with no interruptions. And I talk through the whole process of whatever it may be. And I have all kinds of tricks and all kinds of things that I know you can't look up on YouTube. I know you can't,
Yeah.
but all these individual commands you can. So I never go into how to actually do something. I always leave it on the table for them to search that specific command within Fusion. But then you saw me do it, so I get a nice little AI generated review. It covers all of the things
Yeah.
that we did, all the main points. It's really easy now. And then I just give that video to everyone that signed up. Plus, they were there live. So at the end of it, they asked me questions, and these guys are, for one, for me, it's really been incredible because the guys that are signing up are really awesome dudes. Like, I price it at a certain level through a bunch of research. It's $125 for the 2 hours, but it's kind of at that point where the guys that are interested really are looking for
Yeah.
added value. And I could do something cheaper that's like really, really basic stuff, but like the guys that are coming in are immediately leaving and going to do something with what I just showed them. And a lot of them did, and a lot of them are leaving great reviews and they're emailing me afterwards. We're having all these great conversations, and it's like a community. And
That's so cool.
I never thought something like this would be possible. but I've spent many, many years building this
Yeah.
community and proofing everything that I'm saying by practically actually building these things. And I have now obtained the equipment, and we have everything in house, and we show it all. And yeah, that's just kind of, the seminar just seemed like a natural thing to consider doing. And
I think that's awesome. I mean, what I feel like what you're doing is you're giving back to the community and sharing your tribal knowledge, right? It's like tribal knowledge that you've gathered kind of on your own, but probably with the help with other folks and whatnot. But a lot of times we know users and folks using a certain CAD tool that have gained so much tribal knowledge, and but then it kind of stays with them. Um, and we see this in the manufacturing side, right? Machinists that have been in the machining world for 20, 30 some years. They have so much knowledge, but then when someone new comes in, it's it's it takes time for them to pass that knowledge on. But I think you're doing it in a very scalable and like community driven way, which is really awesome. Yeah, I find that very fascinating.
I'm curious about, I just think of this from an old school point of view. Like if you were doing this business in the 80s, right? Um, would you be giving seminars? Would you be like
Yeah.
essentially empowering your competition, right? I wonder, do you think about that at all? Like, is this, do you ever
it's a
feel like,
fantastic question. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I did want to somehow talk about this, but
Yeah.
during a podcast, it's really difficult to think about things like that. So essentially, today's world, like if you do an analysis on how everything's going today, it is a DIY empowered world that there is no stopping this
Yeah.
this from happening. And why that's so important is because if you aren't doing this in this method, if you aren't putting yourself out there, giving people this knowledge, they're going to be able to get it from anywhere. So the reason why I'm okay with sharing information is because today is the information that's available is infinite. Anything that I'm actually saying to anyone is totally free and totally available to everyone. So it might as well come from me. It might as well build
Mhm.
the customer confidence that I was talking about. And then the DIY world, if we are not engaged and fulfilling the DIY needs, everyone's going to have a 3D printer, whether we like it or not. And the crazy part is AI will eventually, and you guys can talk on this after, but prompts are going to be able to, we're going to be able to design within CAD using prompts soon, I
Yeah.
think. And once we get there, then we're we're kind of screwed. So you might as well, like, it's so difficult to actually invent something. I think I would have been totally fine in the 80s because inventing practical problems would have been so much more obvious to me and easy, and then they would have been a new actual invention. Those 3D displays that I created, that is a actual invention of something. That is like, I've never seen it before. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of engineering explained and guys online that have explained and done suspension simulations and whatever. Never has something like that been created. So to actually have made something that is an official invention today, nearly impossible. Like it is so it's so rare to actually invent something today because AI and because everyone else, there's 7 billion people, we all have access to the internet. We can all, if we have an idea, we just look at you just type it in, but type it in however you're thinking of it, and something
Mhm.
will come up. So you just have to be at the forefront of sharing the information and being an educational center for people. I think education actually, authentic education, will be a future business model that actually works versus gatekeeping, trying to
Mhm.
do things yourself. Because let's be honest, you could look at a picture of anything I've made and then immediately get fairly close by designing something just from a picture. And cars is another thing because if you have the car, obviously all the suspension points have to be the same. The
Right.
width of the subframe, the size of the bushing, like the length of the arm. You can't, that's not proprietary. You didn't come up with that. Now, the method of joining those points together, okay, that's how you did something maybe a little bit different, but then one photo and they've got your idea. So it's not like you can protect it. You have to post a photo in order to sell it.
yeah.
So like I thought about this for years, and it's a great question because it it's something that a lot of people are really worried about and really thinking about. And the way that I'm looking at it is exactly this. We're not going to stop the DIY front, so you might as well be ahead of it. And then if I can actually sell digital uh, formats of products, that is the ultimate win. People are sending you money for the seminars is one example, but like these design files for these educational displays, you can pay $15 and get the file yourself, print it yourself, and we're selling a ton of them that way. So you're not going to stop it, so you might as well at
Yeah.
least make them pay a little bit for it.
I think one of the takeaways from what you just said is you can, people can replicate and clone a product, but they can't replicate and clone a community,
Right.
right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
community is yours. You've built that. And for someone else to come out and say like they, made a clone of your product, it's not going to be the same because they can't clone, the people that you've developed a relationship with and trust with. So I think that's kind of my takeaway of what you were talking about.
Yeah, I would have liked to have added that, but thank you for picking up on that and put.
We want to switch gears a bit. I want to talk about cars with you. Right now you are racing with a what is a C6 Corvette? C6 or C7? I forget which model.
It's a
C6
C6
Corvette.
Corvette, yeah.
Why a
Yeah.
C6 Corvette?
So I was in a 240
Yeah,
for a long time, and that ship had sailed. I needed to get into a new
yeah.
chassis, and for the business model, whenever we get into a new chassis, it opens up the gates for new product design. So fortunately, through the Corvette, we make a lot of parts for it, 45 plus individual
Mm,
components, each one of them having anywhere from 50 to 100 individual components inside of it. So, there's thousands of parts geared towards the Corvette. And we have a large amount of income that comes from doing that. So,
nice.
building the car was more of a business move than it was this car is better. But from the factory, it was a designed race car first, then it was made
Mm,
into a production car, whereas every other car is the opposite. Started as a production car, they made it into a race car. So it's one of the few chassis that are designed with a purpose, and when you tear them down, you really see how that is 100% true. It's so simple. It's so smart. Any GT car that has suspension is the same as a Corvette, very similar. So it's a great
ah,
foundation for racing.
that's cool. If you if money and let's say resources were not an issue, what would be your dream drift car build?
I would probably stick with the Corvette and I would put a big block in it.
Yeah.
And that would be something that we probably will do anyways. I actually have one right now
Nice.
that we're building. It has a 2JZ in it,
Yeah.
and there's some engineering around that, and other people are interested in doing that as well. So I've actually sold a couple engine mounts to put a 2J into a Corvette, and it just like you start doing things like that, and people want to mimic it or do it themselves, and you provide the solutions to like mounting the engine and doing all these other things, and you end up making money off of everything that you spend time on. That's the kind of the beauty of getting yourself to this position. So I'd stick with a Corvette, but
Yeah.
uh, you know, 10 years from now, it's going to be a totally different answer. I'll guarantee you that.
Cool. All right. We'll chat again in 10 years and see what
Yeah.
that answer is. Uh, Recently you posted on your IG and you asked your followers a question. You basically asked them what is most important? Seat time, money, or skill? And I think
Yeah.
you did a poll. I don't know if you did a poll or not. I don't remember, but I'm curious of what you think. What is the most important for you?
It really that was like beta testing basically. See what catches on social media and see if we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
stir up some controversy.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is if you find a topic where there's a line down the middle of people on the same amount of people on all sides, you've found the thing that you need to be talking about. So like it had hundreds and hundreds of comments, which was crazy. But it's because ultimately everyone says that they think money is the most important because with money you can just kind of buy everything else. I'd say if you went to subcategories, you would actually find that having a lot of money, at least if you were given it and didn't work for it, puts you in a horrible position in terms of discipline, work ethic.
Yeah.
You just don't have the same drive. Then there's skill. There's always going to be that guy that didn't practice at all and he just runs rings around everybody. Um, but I think ultimately it has to be seat time. It's the only thing you can control.
Yes.
You can get the most out of it. And here's the thing with seat time: if you can put yourself in every situation at least one time, that means that you've seen every possible outcome with the seat time.
Yeah.
So that's why it is the most important, because with skill, there are still outcomes that, although if you saw it, you would learn from it quickly, you still haven't seen it. So the reaction time to that particular scenario hasn't been practiced. So although your reaction time is faster, your whatever, like all the things are better. Your hand eye is better, everything's better. But if the other guy's seen it 100 times, even though he's not quite as talented, he's going to beat you. He is guaranteed going to beat you. Now, the
Yeah.
dangerous thing is when you get the combination of raw talent, determination, motivation, seat time, and money. That's where you have like Max Verstappen. That's who you find at the top.
Yeah.
But everywhere in the middle, what matters most, whatever you can control, that's what matters most. If you can control your money, then for you, it's number one. I guess the answer is it's different for everybody. But I would argue that seat time
Mm.
is the same across the board, no matter who you are. And I say that to anyone. I'm like, there's billionaires and then there's regular people. And the only thing that is identical between us is that an hour for me is an hour for you. And, we could both waste an hour and we're both gone out an hour. So, like, that
Yeah.
is the equal currency amongst every single person. So,
I'm with you,
good
man.
answer.
I think for me, seat time, the more seat time you have, that's gonna help you develop skill, right? I feel like no one's
yeah.
really born with a certain skill. You kind of have to develop that skill and hone it to get better and better. And
Yeah.
and I see that, like, I watch these videos on YouTube where people just film people racing around the Nürburgring, and the people driving around Nürburgrings, they'll you see all kinds of cars, right? And there are times where you'll see like a a little 2.0 engine liter engine Miata, or like a low power car just tailing a high power Porsche or a high power BMW, and they're like passing them on the corners and whatnot. And I'm like, that's the guy driving the low power car probably has a lot more seat time and know, how that car handles and how much he can push it, versus someone in
Yeah.
a high power car who may or may not have all that seat time and know the limit of their cars. So to me, yeah, I
Exactly.
feel like seat time that's yeah, man, that's most important in
I'd say that
motorsports. In
I agree.
motorsports, yeah.
Yeah.
it's the same thing with Fusion, with learning Fusion, right? Like
Yeah,
the more
yeah.
time you spend with it, the better you're going to be, and it doesn't really matter what you have access to as far as, you know, tutorials and seminars and all that stuff. It's gonna help a lot. It'll get you closer, but you got to put in the 10,000 hours to really get good at something, right?
What do we call that? We call that mouse time.
Mouse time, yeah,
Yeah.
Keyboard time. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
seat time, but it can be considered the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, Josiah, as a drift car driver, we've actually compiled a few clips from various movies of cars drifting. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on it, either like rate it, how would you rate that drift? Is it realistic? Is it completely crazy, over the top Hollywood? Um, yeah, so let's get into these clips.
Okay, so we've got an all-wheel drive Hawkeye Subaru, handbraking and drifting. Okay. You can actually handbrake an all-wheel drive, just not for very long, or else it really messes up the drivetrain.
Doesn't look like
Yeah,
they're worried about the drivetrain.
No, no, it doesn't. I mean, a bone stock STI, not gonna like this very much, but for an
How?
all-wheel drive, yeah. I mean, I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, all
Okay.
right, all
Yeah.
right. So Ryan Gosling drive, and he's in a Mustang. So let's look at this.
The first one was a little weak.
Again with the handbrake.
classic reverse at 50. I mean, it wasn't that impressive. It definitely wasn't that impressive. And Mustangs are well known for being decent at drifting. They're also well known for plowing into people. So
I was just gonna say, that's
I would give that a 5, maybe a 4, 5 out of 10. Yeah, not that impressed.
okay. All right. Now this next scene is straight out of Tokyo Drift. This is where they drifting around Shibuya crossing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say the risk factor alone is gonna make this one fairly impressive. Yeah, I'm gonna give this a solid 8 out of 10. It's gonna be hard to hit 10 out of 10, I'll tell you that. But most of the scenes in Tokyo Drift were legitimate drivers from either D1 or FD or something. So they definitely knew how to drive in Tokyo.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did know that they did this scene actually in Shibuya Square, and I think the story goes is that they didn't tell anyone that they were gonna do this, and in order for the director to not be arrested by the police, they had someone else pose as the director who actually did get arrested and spent like a couple of nights in jail. Yeah, that was the story.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Other than the people, obviously the people that was either fake people or that was already pre-rehearsed. But there's
that
no
had to
way
be CG.
I had that.
Yeah,
don't
there's
remember
no
about
way.
that, but they did drift it, so that's cool.
All right. Well, this has been really fun, Josiah. There's I don't know. There's so much to this conversation. I think we could go another hour easily and like still have lots to talk about. So I really hope to have you back. It'd be great to come up, like you said, and check out your shop and maybe even, try our hand at drifting ourselves at some point. But yeah, before we go, could you just tell people where to find you and what do we need to know about your work?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It was always a dream of mine to put myself out there to the point where I'm invited on a podcast. And you guys did this a few weeks ago. I got invited onto another one that I'm doing on Friday. And,
Nice.
the momentum train's just going to keep on chugging. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then my website is www.fdfraceshop.com. You'll find me if you look up FDF Race Shop on any of the platforms. And yeah, I also drift and race professionally. So if you go to these events like Grid Life and stuff in the US, or if you go to competitions like FD, like you'll probably see me there. I did race in Europe, so if you're watching from Europe, I will probably be back there as well. And yeah, it's pretty easy to find if you're in the auto industry.
Sweet.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
thanks so much,
awesome,
man.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks guys for having me.
Yes, likewise.
Hey everyone, Jonathan here. If you're a designer, builder, or maker and you want to be part of this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. The email is in the video description below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things Shop Talk. If you're ready to try Fusion for yourself, find the link in our description.